we've got to talk about the massive online fallout and culture war that's brewing with people at each other's throats. People are really mad at me right now for not being mad about the Super Bowl halftime show by Bad Bunny, the American artist, Puerto Rican, of course, who is outspokenly anti-Trump and anti-ICE and other things, and of course delivered his show in Spanish. There were a couple parts that were briefly in English, but it was almost exclusively in Spanish. He's a super popular worldwide artist and one of the biggest artists in the US. But lots of people were very upset by his show. And I got to be honest, I don't feel that strongly about it. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I watched it, of course, live, and then I also watched it again later. And I don't think he's the most talented in the world, but there's definitely something about the music that I like. Obviously, I don't understand a lot of what's being said because it's in Spanish. However, the actual show itself seemed to me to be much less like vulgar than it often is, and much less crude in some of the dancing and all of that. And then there were parts of it, like they did an actual wedding ceremony. And I thought it was just part of the show, but then I read after that an actual wedding occurred, and it was really sweet and beautiful, that part. And then there's a part where he has a message about believing in yourself, and then he gives the Grammy to the child version of himself watching the Grammys on TV. It's like that part was cool. Maybe some other parts you don't like, and of course, some people might be upset about some of the things in the songs, though I've seen people sharing lyrics of his songs online on social media that are obviously very vulgar, but that's not what he actually performed at the Super Bowl. They performed a different version. So you'd have to do a translation and look at what actually was said before you could get into that. But a lot of people are just bothered by the fact that it's in Spanish at all. And that didn't really bother me, as you'll kind of see as we get into this. And it's just been like a fever pitch all on social media of some of the loudest voices, particularly on the right, just screaming bloody murder over this, which even if you didn't like it, even if you thought it was bad or cringe or whatever, I could get that, but I can't really understand the five-alarm fire that we're seeing on MAGA social media right now from some corners, certainly not all. I've also seen a fair number of people who like the show or were not that bothered by it, but I'm going to go through some tweets from some high-profile kind of MAGA political commentators who are very, very upset about this performance. Here is Megan Basham from the Daily Wire. No one's really pretending, like inviting Bad Bunny to headline the Super Bowl halftime show isn't a subversive act meant to demoralize America, right? Like, we all know that's what the show is now, question mark. Megan, we do not all know that. um, yeah, I don't think that the goal of the people who planned the Super Bowl is to demoralize America. I think it's to grow their brand, entertain audiences, and also maybe spark a little bit of controversy, maybe introduce the show to global audiences. That might be part of the Bad Bunny selection. I'll read you here a clip from USA Today. Who is Bad Bunny and why is he so popular? On the streaming side, Bad Bunny has been unstoppable. He's the first musician named Spotify's global top artist 4 times, scoring more than 19.8 billion streams of his songs in 2025. Spotify also crowned his album the most streamed album of 2025. So I think the most likely explanation for why they picked Bad Bunny and why they did the performance in Spanish and other things is that they want to grow the NFL's appeal outside of America and in other countries as part of this like global marketing and brand expansion and all of that. And then maybe they feel like highlighting, obviously an outspoken anti-ICE, anti-Trump, Hispanic artist it makes some sort of political statement against the administration or whatever. But I think if you're reading into this, that its goal is a part of subversive plot to destroy America, when he's waving the American flag and the Puerto Rican flag and saying, God bless America. And it was actually, in many ways, kind of an uplifting performance with some positive themes that you'd think even conservatives would like. For example, like the wedding that happened in it, that was very heterosexual and traditional looking. And I don't know, man. I don't really see that personally, but that's just the beginning. There's actually so much more in terms of right-wing pushback and backlash about this. First, though, guys, do make sure to subscribe, to hit the like button if you haven't yet, and do consider becoming a channel member. If you appreciate my middle-of-the-road, kind of nonpartisan, non-tribal analysis of things, I've been getting a lot of heat, and unfortunately, my viewership numbers are down quite a bit, but I don't really do it for that. I do it for the love of the game, and because I just give my honest opinions, and I am a committed contrarian on that front, even when it makes me unpopular. But that does mean that call me PBS. I need support from viewers like you. So we're almost at 400 channel members. I really want to cross that threshold. Hit the join button or the link in the description to join now. You'll unlock early access to long-form ad-free episodes with annoying YouTube mid-rolls disabled and all of that, so I don't get interrupted mid-sentence for some spam. And more importantly, you'll help me support my content rather than just relying on the algorithm, because it really only rewards you if you pander exclusively to the far left or far right. So anyway, consider doing that, and let's keep going here. Benny Johnson, the MAGA YouTuber, wrote on X, the Bad Bunny halftime show was the worst entertainment performance in Super Bowl history. Woke, cringe, unintelligible, foreign, boring, derivative, preachy, creatively bankrupt. Worst of all, no songs you can even sing along to because no songs were in our language. Football is an American sport. The NFL spit in the face of their fans and our nation. This is an absolute humiliation for the NFL. So there's a lot to unpack here. I will just say I find the degree of anger and outrage over this like bizarre. It's just like not everything is the end of the world. And I find the idea that this was the worst halftime show ludicrous. Like, there have been some pretty rough halftime shows, and I thought that the actual musical performance was cool in some ways. Did I think it was a 10 out of 10? Did it astound me and amaze me? No. But was it the worst ever? Was it? It wasn't super overly woke. I mean, there's a couple things in it that I think hint at some sort of progressive political sentiment, but it wasn't like in your face woke like we've seen other stuff. Unintelligible, I mean, I guess in the sense that you don't speak Spanish, sure, but that's okay. Like, that's not unintelligible, implies that it's like incomprehensible because it's so poorly communicated. But like, no, I don't know. You'd have to ask a person who's fluent in Spanish if it was intelligible, because obviously like an English performance is unintelligible to people who don't speak English, but that doesn't mean it's unintelligible. And I actually, one thing I have to disagree with is that this performance was boring. I really did not find it boring. And I'm somebody who doesn't have like super profound highbrow artistic tastes, not by any stretch of the imagination. And I found it engrossing, like the different, the cinematography of it, like when he falls through the roof and when he's like, I thought the camera shots, I don't think it was boring. And no songs you can sing along to. I mean, I guess, but some of those are very popular songs that I've definitely heard before and I can vibe with and jam with, and they weren't in our language. Well, we'll talk about that more because a lot of the backlash does focus on it being in Spanish, and I have some nuanced thoughts about that. But I don't think they spit in the face of their fan. All of this just feels over the top to me, like very inflammatory. I think they're trying to go global in their audience and in their appeal, and that's not the craziest thing to want to do. And that also, just because like you and kind of your demographic isn't big Bad Bunny fans, a lot of Americans are, and a lot of Americans like the performance, and a lot of young people like him as well, and a lot of Hispanic Americans. Even if you think maybe it was a mistake to do a halftime show mostly, not exclusively in Spanish, because obviously Lady Gaga was there and did sing in English, but even if you think it was a mistake, I think acting like this is the end of the NFL as we know it, they've just lit their entire business on fire, is just obviously not true. And acting like Bad Bunny has no fans or no constituency is also not true, even if it's not your cup of tea. Anyway, more here. Ali Beth Stuckey, the Blaze TV host and conservative commentator, wrote on X, doing an entire show at an iconic American event in a language most of the country does not understand is a humiliation ritual. I'm sorry, I just don't see this at all. I don't feel humiliated by hearing music in another language. Like, that's actually something lots of people do all the time. And Spanish is a pretty important language in America. I think there's over 40 million Americans that speak Spanish. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. And obviously, this show was meant to highlight a huge part of Puerto Rican culture and other Hispanic cultures. And I don't view, and I posted this on social media, people got on X rather, and because it's such a right-wing echo chamber, people got very mad at me. But I posted this and I said, let's see, I'll pull it up here. A Spanish language Super Bowl halftime performance by a top American artist is not an attack on American culture. It is a reflection of it. More than 40 million Americans speak Spanish. In thriving American cities like Miami, where I live, it is commonplace. If you feel attacked simply by people speaking in or singing Spanish, you're the problem. I guess where I'm going with this is that you could be upset if there is a specific issue with something that's in the lyrics, maybe, but simply being upset that they're in Spanish, I don't understand. Obviously, if the NFL were to start only doing halftime shows in Spanish, then that would be weird because that wouldn't reflect the majority of the country. But just doing one time, mostly in Spanish, when a huge part of the country speaks Spanish, and Spanish derivatives of Spanish culture or Hispanic culture are like a part of the fabric of American culture. I just don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see that as an attack on America. I see it as a reflection of the fact that we have these different cultures in America that blend together and assimilate in different ways to our higher values, which again, I actually thought were represented pretty strongly in some of Bad Bunny's performance. It's interesting, none of these conservatives seem to have a lot of praise for like the marriage thing. And I think if you were looking at this honestly, rather than through a tribal or partisan lens, you wouldn't necessarily love it, but you might at least, if you're like a traditionalist, appreciate that. No? I don't know. Am I crazy? One more tweet here. This is from the MAGA podcaster Matt Walsh. Quote, I didn't watch the NFL's halftime show, but I've seen the clips here. Just an absolute disgrace and a massive middle finger to the fans to have the entire show in Spanish. Football is an American sport. This is our culture, our pastime. I was expecting a disgusting spectacle, but it looks even worse than I thought. First off, there are a couple things wrong with this. I mean, call me crazy, but if you haven't watched the show, you should probably not be labeling it a disgrace. You should probably consume something before judging it so harshly. And then if you've seen the clips, then you would actually, and by that you've watched the whole thing on just on X, not in real time, then you would know that the entire show wasn't in Spanish. About a minute of it was in English with Lady Gaga. And obviously I'm not trying to be pedantic. It was mostly in Spanish. But like, it just does tell me that maybe you're not engaging with this in good faith if you're making incorrect statements about it and admitting you didn't watch it. And I just can't relate to being this bothered by it, this upset about it. I mean, it's strange for me because I came through conservative media. Like, that was my career origin arc. And we laughed for so long and mocked the progressives and snowflakes who were mad about microaggressions and needed safe spaces and were like reduced to puddles of tears about the silliest and dumbest things. And I still agree with all those criticisms and complaints. I really do. But now I just feel like conservatives are so damn sensitive sometimes. Some of these big high profile commentators, they make the biggest deal out of everything and they just have no chill and really seem very close-minded. Honestly, the close-mindedness is just oozing out of the pores of these people who are talking about this in this way. I don't think you have to like it. I think you could not like the fact that it's in Spanish. It doesn't really bother me, but yeah, I just find the whole thing bizarre. And of course, President Trump had to get in on all of it. He wrote up in a post, the Super Bowl halftime show is absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. It makes no sense, is an affront to the greatness of America, and doesn't represent our standards of success, creativity, or excellence. Nobody understands a word this guy is saying, and the dancing is disgusting, especially for young children that are watching from throughout the USA and all over the world. This show is just a slap in the face to our country, which is setting new standards and records every single day. Now, the funniest part of this to me is that President Trump clearly did not watch the Turning Point USA alternative halftime show, and he just tweeted it out, not realizing that kind of undercuts his friends over there. And in fact, it's been reported that at Trump's Super Bowl watch party, on the big screens, they had Bad Bunny, not the Turning Point show, which, whatever. But I just found that a little humorous. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that it's one of the worst ever. I don't understand the argument that it was an affront to like greatness and excellence. I think he's clearly a talented performer. It's not really my thing, but to say he's like a talentless person doesn't make sense. Part of it was actually dedicated to success when he talks about believing in yourself, and he shows like young him getting the Grammy and had just how he dreamed of that and it became reality. And then to say nobody understands a word this guy is saying, okay, sure, but like how much do we really understand? This is the other thing. How much do we really understand the Super Bowl performers in the first place? I don't know about you, but I do not understand a lot of the stuff they say. Like when I'm listening to these performances in years past and they're saying in English, it's pretty hard to make out the words, and you're kind of just nodding along and singing along because the music is so loud and the sound effects and the crowd and everything. It's like, it's hard to make out the words anyway. Nobody is like breaking down the lyrics for their meaning in most performances. So having it in a different language to me is not even that big a deal for that reason. And then, I'm sorry, this last part of this Trump post where he says that the dancing is too inappropriate for children, I just don't know what he's talking about, because the dancing was not that inappropriate in the Bad Bunny. Obviously, it was somewhat suggestive, but it was tame compared to a lot of the past Super Bowl performances. So specifically making that a complaint about this one, as opposed to all sorts of shows and concerts and everything is like that now, I just don't understand. I want to show you a couple takes I did basically agree with. So here's one from Piers Morgan, who said on X, "Couldn't disagree more, Mr. President. I absolutely love Bad Bunny's halftime show. Amazing. Best in Super Bowl history, ? Theater/choreography, great energy, superbly confident performance, and a very welcome unifying message. Oh, and Spanish is first language for 50 million plus Americans." Gerard Baker from the Wall Street Journal added in a tweet, "Didn't especially like Bad Bunny, though I suspect I'm not his demographic, but why does every difference of opinion in this country have to be instantly escalated into an existential crisis of the soul of America? The Super Bowl halftime show really isn't the Missouri Compromise." I don't quite agree with Piers that like this is really not my cup of tea, and I thought it was kind of cool and it didn't bother me, but I don't think it's the best performance ever. It wasn't amazing to me, but whatever. I mean, I'm not pressed about it either. I more agree with Gerard Baker, where it's like, I just don't understand why people are acting like this is so significant. It either has to be the best thing ever or it has to be an attack on America. At the end of the day, it's just entertainment. It's just somebody singing and dancing on stage for 15 minutes in between the game. And I just think people need to calm down and maybe remember that a lot of this stuff, it can be a distraction from what really matters and what really is important, and to not let yourself get so angry and so worked up about things that in the grand scheme of things are really not the end of the world. That's my advice and kind of my big picture take on this. Love it or hate it. Do not let it keep you up at night. Do not let it have you frothing at the mouth like some of these people online are. And yeah, y'all will have to let me know what you think about the Super Bowl drama and controversy in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, and do consider becoming a channel member. I'm getting a lot of hate lately, so I could use all the support and love that I can get. So thanks to all of you who've already signed up and to anybody else who is able to do so.